What's up, guys? This is Young Shot here, back here today to give you guys another video. This time we're going to be doing it on the Nets coaching carousel and which reported head coach is going to fit this current Nets team. As you guys know, it reported by Marc Stein that one of the few head coaches that is put out there, the head coaches being Tyronn Lue, Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, Jacque Vaughn, and also Mike Brown, the assistant head coach for the GSW, is most likely going to be the Nets head coach in coming season, or probably just the candidacy, and just in due time with the Kenny Atkinson firing. In due time, the Nets process is to name a full-time replacement for Kenny Atkinson. Is not to expect to hit full speed until the season is either completed or canceled, but they have collected a lot of names, and it will commence when the season is resumed or canceled in due time. So the Nets are trying to basically be patient on whether they're going to pick a head coach or not, and we're here to review every single head coach that is out there as far as the candidacy go, and also discuss some of the numbers that's coming up. If you guys enjoyed the last video that I did on Andre Drummond, leave a like on that video. If you like any of the content, any of the new content that is out here on Diesel Club Journalism, subscribe. I be posting almost every week, as much as possible. Not as much as possible, you know, one or two times a week. I gotta, get some time off for myself. But regardless of not, we gonna get in straight to this video. So with the report of basically the Nets coaching carousel beginning due to the fact of the season being canceled, Marc Stein tweeted out of the simple fact that these candidates, as I said, Lue, Kidd, Jackson, Gundy, and Vaughn, and also Brown, is gonna most likely replace Kenny Atkinson, or most likely replace for the Nets head coaching job in due time. And the Nets, the news kind of started with the mutual interest of Kyrie Irving possibly reuniting with his former head coach Tyronn Lue as well, and also just the simple fact that the Nets are trying to look for a more championship approach direction, as they're looking for a head coach that can basically take them over past possible NBA championship level. Has Kenny Atkinson was more of a developing head coach, just trying to make sure that the younger players basically succeed from the Nets rebuild and basically make them into pretty much a contender at one point. And now the Nets are looking like a possible title contender going into next season, especially with Kevin Durant returning from injury and also a fully healthy Kyrie Irving coming into next season. So we just gotta look at most of the stats or look at the coaches that is coming up in due time. And here now we're gonna get started with the head coaching job of Kenny Atkinson with this season, and how he basically formed this team. And maybe we can compare that, or compare the numbers to the coaching of the other coaches that is applying for this job. So let's get started with Kenny Atkinson basically starting off as the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets this season, and then basically compare it to the others, and let's see which coaching style fits the Brooklyn Nets in this current roster. So Kenny Atkinson was pretty much mutually agreed to part ways from the Brooklyn Nets as they was going into a new direction, and it seems like the Brooklyn Nets just wanted to find a head coach that would basically put them at a championship or possibly contending level, compared to where they at right now, which Kenny Atkinson left off. He pretty much had 62 games this season with the team, despite having success last season. With the 62 games that he basically had with this team before being fired, he was 28-34 with a 45% record, and was fighting in between the 7th and 8th seed with an off and on Kyrie, who only played 20 games, and a KD that pretty much did not play the season due to the Achilles injury suffered on the finals of last season. So it was really tough for him to basically get any production from his star players, basically with both of them being out. But he also managed to squeeze a little bit of defensive prowess out of the group. Now, when you look at these numbers as far as the offensive stats, And as far as the defensive stats, you can see the difference. Now, Acton with the team as far as scoring was 20th in scoring. As far as points per game, 27th in field goal percentage, 28th in 3-point percentage, and 26th in free throw percentage, and 16th in assists, 25th in turnovers, 27th in steal, 22nd in blocked, and 15th in fouls with negative 0.7 net rating. So Acton pretty much was a effective defensive coach, but pretty much just cannot get anything going as far as the offensive end, and many reasons why. It was more due to the fact that he just did not have his star players when they needed him, and it kind of showed, especially throughout the season, as the more of the bulk of the load went on Spencer Dinwiddie to basically put up points for the team. And not only that, also Joe Harris that having to step up and basically having to put up some points for the team as well. Another thing that I want to look at is now the advanced stat ratings for Kenny Acton. Acton pretty much had 23rd in offensive rating, but 8th in defensive rating. And many people, or I feel as though if it could improve if Kyrie Irving was more healthy on the court. Now again, injuries happen, and I understand, but if Kyrie Irving was still out there, I think their offensive rating would probably hit mid-level of the NBA. But the defensive rating obviously went down to possibly 10th or 11th in the NBA. Now, looking at the games that Kyrie Irving actually played for the 20 games, and just looking at how the team basically improved, he was 112.7 in offensive rating, which would have boosted them up for possibly going into the mid-level, which I said 16th or 17th place in the NBA at that point. And the defensive rating was a 113.1, which would have possibly put him up to, or put him down to 11th or 12th in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. So it would have been an equal balance in a way for the Brooklyn Nets, in a sense that Kyrie Irving was going to basically being the leader for the team in scoring. It would have basically helped them as far as the offense go, but not really as far as defensive go. But their pace as well would have been improved, possibly now to also 8th place, as their pace was, without Kyrie Irving, was 10th place around the league, being 101.54. The efficient field goal rating would have been completely higher as well, possibly putting them at mid-level as well, and true shooting would have been higher, possibly putting them at 20th percentile of the NBA. Now again, as I said, Kenny Acton, I feel, was more of a developmental coach, as he basically helped the younger players such as Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Joe Harris, and other players such as Jarrett Allen and Prince, even though Prince came this season, pretty much try to excel and try to make sure that is ready for the star players to basically be played around them. But I feel as though this was a great move by the Nets to basically remove him, and now they are looking forward to another head coach who is possibly going to take the helm and lead this star group to a possible NBA title, or just basically contend for many years to come. So now let's look at the coaching carousel, or in a number order. We're going to start on Jacque Vaughn, the interim head coach for now the Brooklyn Nets. So with Jacque Vaughn with the Nets, he only had 2 games, basically showing or sample size of what the Nets could do. Now the 2 games, the Nets beat the Boston Celtics and also the Los Angeles Lakers, which is the 2 top teams, one of the 2 top teams in the NBA. And it's a very impressive showing by Jacque Vaughn, showcasing that his team could really be a really good defensive threat if he has enough talent around him, despite where he goes. Now Jacque Vaughn going past from the Brooklyn Nets and just basically going into the past where he head coached the Orlando Magic from before, that every team that he coached for the Orlando Magic, every season that he coached for Orlando Magic, the team was really good defensively, but never great offensively, or never had showing offensively whatsoever. And it really shows in a testament due to their losing seasons and pretty much him being ousted right away. But with Jacque Vaughn, especially with this 2-game showing, despite it being a small sample size, he really showed that the young players can really play. Now with the stats that I'm showing right here, the defensive rating 3rd in the NBA, especially with those 2 games. The net rating was 9th, and pretty much he limited as much turnovers as possible, almost ranking 1st, and pretty much to assist to turnover ratio and also turnover percentage. The efficient field goal also rose up with him basically being there, and the points per turtle went down by 1 in terms of the ranking, in terms of Kenny Atkinson being there. But you gotta really love the fact that pretty much Jacque Vaughn still kept everything together, or still kept the coaching style of Kenny Atkinson, but also improved the defensive rating as well, and also improved how the team basically played defense a little bit more aggressively than what Kenny Atkinson's style was. Now again, the players that benefited from this, and also was always benefiting this from the beginning with Kenny Atkinson when Kyrie Irving is down, and also Kevin Durant was down, was Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, Karis LeVert, and DeAndre Jordan, basically giving DeAndre Jordan more minutes compared to Jared Allen, who was pretty much having a hard time, especially this season with the new star players that's out there. So Jacque Vaughn is a really interesting head coaching candidacy for the job, but again, I don't think Jacque Vaughn is going to be the head coach, or the new up-and-coming head coach for the Brooklyn Nets. It seems like they're just looking more for a more competitive head coach, or a coach that basically has a proven track record already. And it seems like Jacque Vaughn, despite him having a good, little sample size of games showcasing, hey, I can basically help a team become really good defensively, it really shows that, hey, the Nets is looking for somebody that has a proven track record, such as a Tyronn Lue, such as Mark Jackson, and such as a Jeff Van Gundy, that they may not even look at his direction whatsoever, despite him being a solid interim head coach / assistant coach. And hopefully Jacque Vaughn can find another good job that's out there, especially with the season possibly being canceled or maybe resuming in due time. With Ty Lue potentially becoming the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, we gotta look at his track record from before. Now, Ty Lue is the only head coach out of the head coaching carousel that pretty much won an NBA championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2015-2016. So it kind of gives him an advantage over some of the head coaches that's out there, despite it being some people are going to say obviously LeBron helped Ty Lue basically win that championship, and basically had a stacked team to begin with. But you cannot discredit Ty Lue for basically what he does as a head coach. Now, basically with his winning and win-loss record being 128 of 83, and pretty much him basically having, every time he had coached, a top 5 offensive rating each and every season, and having to deal with pretty much the personalities and the egos of the Cleveland Cavaliers that season, especially with Kyrie Irving and LeBron James, and also even Kevin Love and certain other players that's on the team such as J.R. Smith. You gotta really wonder, hey, this could be a good chance for the Brooklyn Nets to possibly get a great level-headed coach that can pretty much set them in check and also basically be a championship contender. Now, with Ty Lue, the only disadvantage that I really see is his defense. As I said, with him basically having a great offensive game plan and basically showing that his 2 star players, especially when he was showing with Kyrie and LeBron, basically they can run off of isolation and pick and rolls. They can pretty much score at will with the given space, with shooters around them. It's really good. But as far as the defensive end goes, the defense was horrid. As I said, in 2015 and 2016 were the only season where they eclipsed top 15 in defensive rating, being 11th in 2015 2016. In 2016 and 2017, they was 21st in defensive rating, and in 2017 2018, they was so bad they was almost, I think, third last in defensive rating, being 28th in defensive rating. My fault, second last in defensive rating. It was really bad on Tyronn Lue's part, showing that his defense can't really guard three-point shooters or can't guard simple cuts, and it was really tough to see that he was not preaching simple fact that cuts cannot be stopped, or pretty much the defender doesn't even have to help one pass away, as shown on the videos right here. But in terms of that, the only bright spot you can really look at as far as Tyronn Lue was how Kyrie Irving basically flourished under the offense that he was in. And we're going to look right now to see how the numbers basically help Kyrie Irving in this factor, especially with him now being on the Brooklyn Nets, and now have him being paired up with Tyronn Lue, possibly being paired up with Tyronn Lue, and now with Kevin Durant in the picture, who's possibly a little bit more efficient in terms of shooting compared to LeBron James, who was pretty much a more efficient player in terms of playmaking and also operating in the post. So let's see how he is more efficient in terms of how he can get his players more touches, and how the Brooklyn Nets can be an offensive juggernaut with Tyronn Lue on the helm. So with Tyronn Lue at the helm, pretty much Kyrie Irving in 2015 and 2016 with 21 points per game was 18th in ISO possessions throughout the league, and 8.8 in possessions off of points, so pretty much off the pick and roll. So as a pick and roll handler, he's basically was, I believe, 11th in points per game as the handler of the ball, and it really showed to the testament that Kyrie Irving could basically score with an isolation opportunity, or basically getting pick and roll, and basically they can send the offense through him and score. Now, not saying that Kyrie Irving isn't the best talent that's out there as far as basically creating for himself or whatever, because he is by far one of the best playmakers in terms of scoring in the NBA, no doubt about it. And it was pretty much showed in the first in efficiency, field goal rate, and team stats. But now he's being paired up with Kevin Durant, who's also the fourth, or no, he wasn't fourth, he was the sixth best in ISO possessions in 2015 with OKC Thunder. So it may seem like he's going to be sharing the ball a lot and basically fighting for the ball a lot with Kevin Durant, and it's going to be a great 1-2 punch, especially with him and Kyrie Irving basically being on the helm. But I'm not sure as far as Kevin Durant basically being healthy again to basically play a full season, or basically getting back in the groove of playing a full season. Being out with that Achilles injury, it's going to be really tough. So we're going to have to see how Tyronn Lue basically gets the offense going for both of them. But I really see a big potential with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving playing together with Tyronn Lue as the helm as the head coach. Now the only worry for me, again, as I said, is the defensive play from the group. How do you change a defensive-minded group already from Kenny Atkinson to Jacque Vaughn if Jacque Vaughn is out of the job, to Tyronn Lue, who's pretty much more heavily focused on the offensive end? Does the defense change? Does anything change whatsoever? Do Spencer Dinwiddie get a more boosted look, and do the role players now just become spot-up shooters for the team that's basically being controlled by Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving? All those questions is going to be most likely going to be answered if Tyronn Lue is going to be the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Do I feel Tyronn Lue is going to do a good job? I feel as though the team is going to be historically good offensively, but be historically bad defensively if Tyronn Lue is the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Just due to the fact that his just based off of past record alone, Tyronn Lue is just not a good defensive head coach whatsoever, and it's just going to really show in him not having, despite having really good rim protecting bigs now in DeAndre Jordan and Jarrett Allen
and worse
I just
off,
don't see the
Cavs
communication
lost votes in
aspect or him
convincing
basically
fashion.
enforcing that.
So, what we
in the
all do is
locker
left
room.
with a fairly
And
easy decision.
with that, we're gonna now
Dismiss the
move
coach
on
whose
with
teams have
Jason
consistently
Kidd possibly
shown no
becoming the head
defensive
coach of the
improvement for
Brooklyn Nets,
years
and
with
him
or without
becoming
LeBron,
possibly the
and who
second
openly
stint
defied
how
his
he's gonna
orders
manage
to play
that
the
group
younger
whatsoever.
players more.
With Jason Kidd potentially becoming the Brooklyn Nets head coach in this coming season and making a second stint at the Brooklyn Nets head coaching job, you gotta wonder if he can possibly deal with the star power of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Has he had trouble or pretty much had a tougher time, especially with Deron Williams, Joe Johnson, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Brook Lopez being the star five that he had? Now, despite that starting five basically making it far into the second round of the playoffs and basically not succeeding, going anywhere closer, and also Paul Pierce and Kevin Durant being old, you gotta wonder maybe this is probably the time for Jason Kidd to possibly get something going in his coaching career. Now, every time Jason Kidd has became a head coach or just basically his coach's season, out of the 4 seasons that he played with, he had a 500 record or over 500 record. So it really proves that Jason Kidd is a really good head coach in terms of regular season record, and also can pretty much have a very high powered offense that he likes to run to. And despite him not having the best pace whatsoever, he also shown that his teams can basically operate from isolation and also pick and roll, which is pretty much the format that Tyronn Lue runs with. Now, again, the similarities with Tyronn Lue and Jason Kidd is tremendous, and as I said, that the defense for Jason Kidd, especially in the Milwaukee Bucks days, as we're going to take a more closer look at that season when he got fired at 2017-2018, was just horrid. His defensive rating for the 2017-2018 season was 26 in defensive rating, and pretty much the pace for that team was 22nd in pace. The isolation for that team was 10th, the 9th off of cut scored, and pretty much they were 17th in pick and roll possessions and frequency. So again, maybe that's going to be boosted up with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant there. But also, you just got to wonder, what is Jason Kidd going to do as far as the offensive game plan for the Brooklyn Nets? It seems like he's more post up, more of a isolation type of guy, where he relies more heavily on his star players basically generating offense, and especially during the playoffs, how is that going to work to the hands of Kevin Durant? Now, again, as I said, Kevin Durant is one, if not one of the top stars in the league, probably one of the top 5 in the NBA right now, if he is not injured, and can basically operate from the post and basically be a great isolation scorer in the NBA. Now, the same could go for Kyrie Irving, as he could operate also from the post as well, as he also shown plays from before that he could. The thing is, again, as I said, with the same similarities as Tyronn Lue, can he lead this team defensively? And my answer is no to that. Jason Kidd has always been historically a bad defensive head coach, and it's just never shown, especially with a really good athletic and wingspan size Milwaukee Bucks team, to basically lead them to a 26 defensive rating is really bad on his part, especially from that season when you have lengthy size, especially with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, John Henson, and a lot of other athletic specimens such as Malcolm Brogdon as well. It really shows that the Milwaukee Bucks just did not flourish under Jason Kidd, and it kind of shows that maybe with this Brooklyn Nets squad, especially the younger players, they're not going to be in the mood to they're not going to be in the defensive mood as compared to Kenny Acton and Vaughn for the job. So Jason Kidd, in my opinion, is probably no less the same way as Tyronn Lue, but a little bit less than what he can do. I feel as Tyronn Lue is going to bring that team to offensive levels, and I feel as though Jason Kidd would just make them into a really good offensive team, but with no defensive play behind it. I don't think it's going to be a historic offense with Jason Kidd. Beyond that, And I feel as though Jason Kidd is going to be the mediocre option if he does get picked for the second stint of the Brooklyn Nets job. So a person for the job that's also looking forward for it is Mark Jackson. He's a Brooklyn native, pretty much coached the Golden State Warriors from 2013 2014, started at 2011, and pretty much every season that he is basically head coach to the Golden State Warriors, except for one, which was the 2011-2012 season, which they went 23-43. Mark Jackson has led the Golden State Warriors to the playoffs every time, and basically had winning records every time, going 52-30, I believe, in one season with the Golden State Warriors in 2013-2014, and pretty much gave them a very good head coaching job. It's basically was an instrumental part in GSW's development, especially Steph Curry's and Klay Thompson, as they basically became unique ballers for the team. Now with Mark Jackson for 2013-2014, the offensive rating was 12th in the league, 4th in defensive rating, and 6th in pace. But also too, another intriguing stat that I might have to add is that they had the least touches but the most assists turned into points in the league. So they basically ran the offense very quick, very efficient, and using a lot of off-ball screens to basically get their shooters wide open, but also having that pace and space with a dangerous point guard such as Steph Curry, who can just pretty much rain threes from a very far distance, and also Klay Thompson, who can rain threes in transition, and also adding people like Andre Iguodala, who can basically play make and also move the ball around. The team was really good, especially in terms of basically playmaking and helping out one another as far as the defensive end. And I feel as though with the Brooklyn Nets now, with the more intriguing star power, not saying that Steph Curry wasn't a star power player enough, I feel as though now with more star power with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and a more younger team and also having kind of the similarities to that Golden State team, aka Andrew Bogut with DeAndre Jordan, or DeAndre Jordan being a little bit more athletic, obviously, you can see that this Brooklyn Nets team with Mark Jackson could be the best pairing out of the group. I feel as though Mark Jackson could potentially lead this group into more championship heights, or possibly leading them into conference finals if he took the helm. He's more disciplined. He basically wants his team to be better, and he's going to basically hold them into accountability, especially with the egos that's in that locker room in due time. And I feel as though with Brooklyn Nets, with the younger players that's out there, he's going to basically help them to become really good basketball players, whether they are going to lead the team as far as free agency goes, or whether they are going to stay on and help this championship team in the long run, as I said. Now, the other players may benefit, especially Joe Harris, especially players like Spencer Dinwiddie, especially Karis LeVert, I believe, Taurean Prince, Wilson Chandler even. I feel those players are going to really be helpful, especially Jared Allen, especially possibly being into the starting line, possibly being inserted to the starting lineup. I feel as though those players are going to be really big in the development if Mark Jackson is the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. And I feel as though KD would benefit way more in this style offense, where he basically have the control of the offense and basically the lead group player, where he can basically just fire threes from whenever or shoot shots from whenever, and has the green light just to basically put up buckets at any point or given time, but also just sharing the ball as much as possible and basically making sure that the team is never playing selfish whatsoever. And I feel as though Mark Jackson could lead this team into that new height that the branch of the new Brooklyn Nets is looking for. Definitely. Another head coach that we are looking for is Jeff Van Gundy. Now, Jeff Van Gundy, it was basically raising name for the Brooklyn Nets job, but again, he's been raising name for a lot of jobs, and this is one is probably the least likely to happen, I believe. But again, we cannot count out the simple fact of the NBA, which is the most amazing storylines that's be happening, especially especially head coaches that come out of retirement to coach, or just players and how they basically put on performances. I do not doubt Jeff Van Gundy is going to come back and basically come to a head coaching job with the Brooklyn Nets, and I would not be surprised if he did. Now, Jeff Van Gundy has a enormous coaching record, especially the last game he coached was 2006 to 2007, and he was the only out of 12 head coaches, the only one in NBA history to pretty much coach as many games as him and basically have a better win percentage as him. He also coached for an NYC team. He coached for the New York Knicks and pretty much led them to the finals in 1998 and 1999, which he did a fantastic job leading a 8-seeded group to the NBA finals and basically leading them all the way to basically get ousted out by the San Antonio Spurs. But nonetheless, the 8-seeded team, the only 8-seeded team besides from, I believe, the Houston Rockets, to pretty much make it to the finals and pretty much showcase their talent with a lot of talent that they have. Now, today's NBA game is kind of tricky, and especially with Jeff Van Gundy not coaching. Besides from the Olympics, that he's basically the Olympic team, the under 18, the under 20 Olympic team. Besides from them, Jeff Van Gundy has not coached an NBA game, and it's going to be really intriguing to see if the Brooklyn Nets want to hire a coach like that, and maybe it's not going to be played within the new style. Now, Jeff Van Gundy is a respected head coach and deal with a lot of superstar players, such as Allen Houston, such as Latrell Speedwell, and such as other players like T-Mac and Yao Ming. You can see that Jeff Van Gundy could possibly take on the group of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and just basically expect nothing less from the group, as they are basically a competitive group that just wants to win but also have egos inside that locker room. So let's see if Jeff Van Gundy could possibly become one. Again, as I said, this is going to be the least likely out of the ones that I believe, because I feel like Jeff Van Gundy is going to focus more heavily on the Olympic group and also just stay and retire and just doing his broadcasting job more likely, compared to his other counterpart, Mark Jackson, who is more looking for a head coaching job more and more by the years. And last on this list is Mike Brown. Now, with Mike Brown pretty much being ousted, last time he was ousted was 2013, 2014 with the Cleveland Cavaliers, when Kyrie Irving was still a youngster, pretty much on his second year of in the NBA. Pretty much he helped the Cleveland Cavaliers earlier when a younger LeBron James was in the mix, pretty much leading the team to a 2006-2007 finals appearance against San Antonio Spurs after they pretty much got ousted. But considering that team and pretty much who they had, LeBron James and pretty much nobody else, Mike Brown is kind of the lucky go-getter himself. He pretty much has a really good win and loss record due to the simple fact of the young player named LeBron James, and pretty much it kind of discredit his coaching style, especially when he had to coach without King James, and basically 2013-2014 showed that he pretty much cannot get anything going with his team, whereas they basically had a 22% or 22 place in offensive rating and 16th place in defensive rating, despite the former head coaches getting a better having a lower defensive rating as him. He basically includes defensive mindset, and the defense improved but the offense never did. And it kind of showed where Kyrie Irving is the only person that can really put up points for that team. It was just bad that Kyrie Irving was basically forced at a young age to basically have a high usage rating. And not only that, Dion Waiters basically at his point trying to have a more higher usage rating as well, and trying to put in points for the team, who was very inexperienced. And not only that, just showed no effort as far as basically developing the younger players. So I don't think Mike Brown is even topping this list as far as the Nets head coaching carousel at this point, but it's still a good inquiry to see and look at, as he does have a proven track record and could possibly help this team, you know, make it into the playoffs. But I don't think he can basically get anywhere close of touching a finals appearance, especially with this team, if he just, you know, is not really cut out to be a really good head coach without superstar players. So that's my take on Mike Brown, and that's my take on most of the head coaches on that's in this Nets carousel. Now for my final thoughts. My final thoughts are the Brooklyn Nets are most likely going to go with the experienced head coach, as I said, and they're most likely going to choose a head coach that's going to basically lead them in style. Now the most likely head coaching job option is most likely going to be Tyronn Lue or Mark Jackson, in my opinion, because I simply see the fact that Mark Jackson, a Brooklyn native, he knows pretty much the ins and outs of Brooklyn. He basically knows how the city works. It basically will bring a culture change that I believe will benefit the Brooklyn Nets as much as possible. And not only that, I feel as though he will basically make sure the players that's on the team be held accountable as much as possible, as he is the tenure for that Nets job, and also making sure that this team can basically go into new heights. Now, as far as another coach that I would possibly pick second place in my team, will probably be Tyronn Lue in this case, or Jeff Van Gundy most likely. But I'm gonna go into Tyronn Lue. Tyronn Lue is the more prolific offensive coaches out there, and I feel as though with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, they can basically make a splash. And basically with his track record, basically having an NBA championship in his belt, I feel as though the Brooklyn Nets will be more intrigued, basically adding him in, and also having a relationship with Kyrie Irving, and also players like Joe Harris. He can basically help out this team in terms of their offense, and basically lead them into being an offensive juggernaut, and lead them possibly to another finals appearance in due time. Now, my third pick will be Jeff Van Gundy, which is more likely not going to be the pick that is going to happen, due to the fact that I don't think Jeff Van Gundy is going to step out of the commentator booth anytime soon, and I don't think he is going to really be adaptive to the offensive game, or just basically be adapted to today's NBA game, as it's going to be a little bit more stressful for him comparing to the last time he had coached, which was 2006 and 2007, which was for the Houston Rockets. So I don't see him basically becoming a head coach for the Brooklyn Nets, but he's going to be third on my list regardless, just due to his track record and basically having the best win record, and basically being a historic head coach. So with that in mind, I feel as though Jeff Van Gundy will be third. If I had to say fourth, it would be Jacque Vaughn. Jacque Vaughn is probably the best defensive coach besides from Mark Jackson that's out there, and is having a solid track record with the Brooklyn Nets, and just basically with his teams with Orlando Magic. As far as the defensive area goes, if this team wants to improve defensively, I feel as though Jacque Vaughn will probably be the best option. And then fifth will probably just going to be Jason Kidd, being the lowest of the lowest. I feel as though, not my fault, Mike Brown would be the lowest of the lowest. Jason Kidd would probably be my fifth, and then sixth will be Mike Brown, in that order, just for the simple fact that Jason Kidd has a really good offensive team every time he steps out and basically becomes a head coach, but has a defensive squad is just going to be really tough, and I don't see him commanding that team whatsoever. And also Mike Brown, I just don't see him doing much either way with that team, despite him having the track record to basically say, hey, I coached superstar teams before, I can do this again. That is not a problem. I feel as though Mike Brown just not cut out for it as well. So with that in mind, thank you guys for tuning into Diesel Claw Journalism, especially for this video with the Brooklyn Nets. I know it's been a long video, and basically me discussing every head coach that is for the Brooklyn Nets job. But again, this was a fun video to do, especially searching up the stats and basically looking out and basically putting in my opinion on who I think may be the Brooklyn Nets head coach in due time. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you really like this video, leave a like and subscribe. If you really like the other content, such as the Kesson video, the Vija video, or the Drummond video, make sure to leave a like on that and comment down below. And this is the usual call journalism. I'm out. Peace.